Tonight we are near Muscat, the capital of Oman, in the foothills of the Hedgehog Mountains, and we are looking for giant camel spiders. Those are camel spiders in the genus Galeodes. These will be some of the largest ones that I've ever shown on this channel. All right, we have our first camel spider of the night. Right over here, you can see this one is quite a large one. In fact, it's about half the size of my hand, which is exactly what I was hoping we would see. All right, got it. This one was actually quite friendly. Giant camel spiders, or those in the genus Galeodes, like the one that we have here, represent the largest camel spiders in the world. And in certain parts of the Middle East, North Africa, and Central Asia, they are special among arachnids, specifically due to their size. The reason I am naming those particular regions of the world is because not only are these Galeodes the largest members of their order, they are also sometimes the largest arachnids, period, in some parts of those regions that I mentioned. I think that's worth mentioning because of the dozen or so arachnid orders in the world, the only other two for which the same can be said are spiders and scorpions. This is barring some obscure exceptions that may exist that I am overlooking. Wherever you find yourself in the world, if you see a camel spider, chances are that several other local arachnid species are much larger than it. But in this area of Oman, and in other parts of the regions that I mentioned, that is not the case, as they are competing with the top arachnid predators. And in this mountain range, the Hajar range, that would be just a single scorpion in the genus Nebo. But that said, there are many areas, especially in gravel plains, where Galeodes are the dominant arachnid predator, representing the largest local arachnids in terms of mass and leg span combined. This is partly because Galeodes are often able to capitalize on habitats that other arachnids of equal size cannot. Down here we have something pretty cool. This is a Scolopendra valida, a species of giant centipede. I think these are sometimes called the Canary Islands giant centipede. All right, cool, got it. These Scolopendra valida are quite a widespread and variable species, and in that regard, ours is somewhat special. The majority of the ones living in the Middle East usually have dark bands on their dorsum, sometimes only on the front half of the centipede's body, and these bands can be incomplete as well. But of course ours appears to be lacking bands altogether. Unsurprisingly, this is the largest centipede species in Oman, and the Middle East in general. Ours is average in length for an adult of this species. Of all of the big centipede species found in the world, let's call it at least 10 centimeters in length excluding appendages, this is one of the most well adapted for harsh desert conditions. They frequently live in areas that experience only a few days of rain per year on average, and I'm not talking about heavy rains either. This is impressive because centipedes are generally not physiologically well suited for dry conditions. They tend to desiccate quite easily, and for that reason, this species likely relies a lot on air humidity in this region. We are currently next to the Gulf of Oman, and this area experiences constant high humidity year-round, especially at night when these are active. This aspect of their ecology is in contrast with other large desert centipede species from around the world, whose activity periods mainly revolve around rain. Down here we have a camel spider in the genus Othoes. These camel spiders in the genus Othoes have shown up on this channel on several occasions, and that's because when I was in Jordan shooting videos about a year ago, a little bit less, these arachnids were fairly common. I did make a dedicated video for this genus. If you want to go see that, I'll leave a link in the description. But anyway, the one that we have here is quite likely not the same species that we observed in Jordan. Not only that, but these might be an endemic species of Othoes that lives around here in the albidula plain of northern Oman. This particular genus of camel spiders is extremely poorly known from Oman. I'm certainly not the first person to document them here, but practically nothing is known about the population that is living in Oman. But what I can say about their ecology is that, like other Othoes, these appear to be pseudophilous. We are currently walking along a large dune. And the nearest area in which you can find other Othoes camel spiders, I believe, is at the border of Oman and the United Arab Emirates. And once again, there's a strong possibility that that is not the same species as this one. We have a hedgehog down here, and this is Paraechinus hypomelas. This one is fairly large, and you can see that it's next to a crevice. So I'm going to be very careful here, and I'm going to pick it up off camera. These are commonly known as the Brandt's hedgehog, and they have a large contiguous range through Iran, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, and some small parts of the neighboring countries. But they also have several isolated populations on the Arabian Peninsula. So the one that we have right here is part of the Hajar population. The only other species of hedgehog that is found in Oman is the desert hedgehog, Paraechinus aethiopicus, and that one can be differentiated from this one by having smaller ears and white tips on the lateral quills. And of the two species, this one is much larger as an adult. And regarding its diet, Brandt's hedgehog is an omnivorous generalist, so they're mostly known to eat arthropods, but they've also been well documented eating fruits, snakes, bird eggs, and some other stuff as well. During periods when the desert locust is quite abundant, those make up the majority of this hedgehog's diet. They are quite solitary, and there is a possibility that they are cannibalistic as well. Though these hedgehogs might reuse shelters, they're largely nomadic, and this is, of course, unless they have a litter that they have to take care of. And while they are capable of digging burrows, they don't do so as much as some other hedgehogs, and they instead like to use pre-existing forms of shelter, which often come in the form of rock shelves. And while the specific epithet hypomelas refers to the dark pelage of this species, there are some populations of these hedgehogs where the individuals are nearly or completely white. This is not a form of albinism, but rather something closer to leucism. We have our second camel spider running around down there, and it just hid beneath a rock. But unfortunately for it, that's not going to work out very well. You can tell this one is quite a bit smaller than the last one that we found. This is the same species as the last one that we saw. I've seen enough intermediate-sized individuals to basically confirm this. As you can tell, a lot of that orange is lost to a more gray coloration when they become adults. But even as adults, this coloration makes it easy to distinguish this species among the other giant camel spiders that are also living in this country. This includes species like Galeodes arabs or Levi, which are more of a pale sandy color. As opposed to the other Galeodes in Oman, these appear to be more restricted in range due to habitat preference. They are found in the Hajar and Dhofar mountains, and it also appears that this species may range into KSA and probably Yemen too. And superficially, the most similar looking ones that I know of are found in East Africa, of all places. In case I forget to say so later, at the end of this video we will go find one of these in southern Oman in the Dhofar range during the day. Down here on this rock, we have a Cyrtopodion scabrum. This guy right here. Usually these are very skittish. I'm not sure why that one was staying still. These are known as keeled geckos, bent toed geckos, as well as several other common names. These geckos may very well have been introduced to various parts of the Arabian Peninsula, including Muscat, where we are right now, a fairly long time ago. I'm talking hundreds of years, potentially via old trade routes. Despite the fact that this gecko is native to much of the Middle East and was described from southern Turkey, in the parts of its current range that I speak of, it's almost always associated with human infrastructure. Many other species that follow this trend have been found to be introduced, so that's quite likely the case for these geckos as well. Of course, further investigation would be needed to know how much of this is true, and I think a molecular analysis would be quite telling. Most geckos that spend a lot of time on vertical surfaces, especially smooth ones, tend to have toe pads. This is one of the most ubiquitous species that does not possess that trait. You can see that their feet look exactly like those that you would find on any other terrestrial gecko that does not live on sand. But nonetheless, these are often found above the ground. However, as you would expect, they are fairly limited to surfaces that are rough. Another Othoes camel spider, this time a male. Instead of showing you the usual sexual dimorphism in camel spiders, I will instead point to these enlarged setae that you see on the chelicerae here. Those two almost parallel lines on its face are two modified hairs that you can't find on the female. And if I'm not mistaken, it doesn't show up until the final molt. So only final instar males will have these two hairs. I did not whip out the ultraviolet light for the female, but these males do tend to fluoresce a little bit more than the females, so this is the occasion. And I must say that in addition to that, these Othoes do fluoresce more brightly than your average camel spider. I don't know if you can hear that, but it is about 3:30 in the morning, and there is a rooster behind me. Might be difficult to see right now, but there is a gecko there. This is a Stenodactylus leptocosymbotes, one that we have here. It's just a juvenile. More commonly, these are referred to as eastern sand geckos, and they're only found in the UAE, Oman, and a small part of Yemen. Morphologically, these are quite similar to the highly ubiquitous Middle Eastern short-fingered gecko, Stenodactylus doriae. Even though they share roughly the same ecology, there does seem to be a little bit of habitat partitioning going on between the two. So the one that we have here, the eastern sand gecko, likes to live mostly in sand sheets, or more generally in flat areas that are fairly sandy. Meanwhile, the Middle Eastern short-fingered gecko more often likes to live in open dunes. And as a result of this slightly different ecology, the Middle Eastern short-fingered gecko has fringes on its toes, meanwhile this one does not. Also, because the availability of open dune habitat is much less than that of sand sheets, even though the eastern sand gecko, the one that we have here, has a much more restricted range, this range is much more filled in within this country. In other words, there are more localities in Oman where you can find this gecko as opposed to the other one. We have another camel spider here, and this one is also an adult like the first one. Ow. I think there's a chance that it thinks I'm prey. Yeah, it's gonna bite me again. Not quite as large as the first one that we found. So, of course, many aspects of camel spiders' biology is greatly exaggerated. It feels like with every new place that I visit, I hear a new myth about them that I haven't before. But one thing that is certainly true about them is that they do eat vertebrates. This has been documented numerous times. Camel spiders frequently eat lizards, but they've also been documented eating snakes and even birds. For anyone who is curious as to how they're even reaching birds, some of the smaller songbirds in the desert out here like to rest on the ground at night. But anyway, if you listen to the sounds in the background while I'm speaking right now, you'll notice that you can't hear any crickets or other insects. That's because there's very few of them at night at this time of the year. And yet these camel spiders are still active. What are plentiful around here at this time of the year are diurnal grasshoppers and geckos. Whereas the default assumption is that lizards are only included occasionally in the camel spider's diet, I think it's likely in some circumstances that geckos and other lizards actually make up a substantial portion of these camel spiders' diets. So a likely meal tonight for this camel spider could be, for example, that bent toed gecko that we saw earlier. Under this tree, back there is a toad on the ground. That is a Firouzophrynus dhufarensis. I should be able to reach it. And here it is. These are commonly known as the Dhofar Toad. This is quite an impressive toad among the species of amphibians that can live in very dry and hot conditions. Adults of these toads don't need to live anywhere near a freshwater source. Many other species of amphibians deal with hyper-arid zones by being extremely seasonal, surfacing when there's heavy rains, for example. But these toads are active pretty much year-round. And this particular area near the capital of Muscat only receives about 6 days of rain on average every year, amounting to only about 4 centimeters of rainfall. Even though these can be active during harsh conditions, like tonight for example, they are also able to aestivate for up to 3 years in the ground. Their reemergence after these periods is triggered by rains. But having said all this, these are often found next to streams and drainages and other sources of water. However, in my personal experience, whenever those riparian habitats are overrun by Arabian toads, which can be extremely numerous, these Dhofar toads are often nowhere to be found. And by the way, those two toad species are the only amphibians found in Oman. Oh, nice. Here's our camel spider. And this, as you can tell, compared to the other ones that we've seen, is of course a juvenile. Oman is almost entirely made up of deserts, and virtually every single square kilometer of this country is occupied by camel spiders. And at this time of the year, it should be possible to see a camel spider active in this country pretty much anywhere. But the area that we are in right now might be the only large-ish exception to that. So, of course, this area is quite green because it's affected by the monsoon season. And having walked in and around these forests on several nights, it's been impossible for me to find any camel spiders. Meanwhile, closer to the coast, they are active. And because this particular species is active at this time of the year closer to the coast, I've been able to observe several of them, one of which was being preyed on by a deathstalker. And this is fairly standard because scorpions are one of the main predators of camel spiders. Instead of transferring it back to the rock, I'm just going to leave it in its burrow. Well, those are all of the giant camel spiders we are going to find today. So I'm going to end this video here. Hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching.